Today's breaking news. John David Duggar seemed reluctant to share that he was involved in a plane crash, but the news eventually went public. Though so far, none of the Duggar family members have really taken on traditional careers. Spouses of the Duggar kids, like Jeremy Vulo and Abbie Burnett, have boasted professional gigs as a soccer player and nurse, respectively. But most of the Duggar kids, now adults, typically don't head off to college and start conventional careers. The few Duggars who went to college didn't finish it, and they also attended religious schools. It makes sense, then, that each of the Duggars who moved out and started building their own lives had to find creative ways to make a living and pursue their passion. For John David Duggar, it's always been flight that struck his fancy, and it's rumored that the third oldest Duggar might fly professionally. However, when he crashed in a small plane, he apparently wasn't on the clock. Viewers who used to watch 19 Kids and Counting know that John David has always been really into planes. In 2012, the Duggar Family Blog, a site run by superfans who are apparently also friends with the Duggars, published a post highlighting a trip where John David took his brother Josh on a flight. The images were, per the blog post, courtesy of Josh Duggar. At the time, John David would have been about 22 years old. Commenters on the Duggars blog at the time hoped that John David would fulfill his dream of becoming a pilot, though some expressed surprise that he was able to get his license. Fans remembered seeing John David get involved in construction and referred to a time when Jim Bob apparently said that flying lessons were too expensive. Given Jim Bob's hefty net worth, it's unclear what was deemed too expensive. However, the following year, an episode of 19 Kids and Counting showed John David giving brother Joseph a lift to his boot camp for emergency rescue team training. At the time, the show's description noted, John David was one step closer to his pilot license. Whatever the case, John David seemed to be a well-practiced pilot now, and his love of flight only became more clear from that trip to Little Rock, Arkansas. A few years after that small plane trip with his brother, John David courted and married his now wife, Abbie Burnett. The pair went on flights together. John David proposed in an airport hangar, and their wedding photos even featured an airport runway and a small plane. The two did, of course, depart their nuptials by plane as well. And later, they announced their first child with a plane-themed photo shoot, too. Unfortunately, it hasn't always been smooth flying for the couple, not when it comes to John David's flights, anyway. In October 2021, John David was piloting a small passenger plane when it crashed. He wasn't alone on board either. 2 passengers were in the aircraft. News of the crash wasn't immediately released, however, likely given the relatively non-noteworthy crash. Though the plane apparently took substantial damage, there were no injuries reported, according to John David and Abbie's official statement to Sullivan's. And odds are, John David won't shy away from continuing to fly in the future. And, in a heartwarming twist, it seems at least one of his brothers, Jeremiah, is also interested in aviation, which could mean more family flights are in their future.